but we also have strong partnership from the county because we'd asked the county to partner with us. They put forward over $300 million. And that's one of the reasons I was really firm in saying that we were not going to put another dime into that deal, that we had a deal, we said this was the maximum that we could put into it. And we were hearing just vague numbers of $50 million to $300 million additional dollars from the city. That was not happening. The last 3 hurricanes combined were 400,000 cubic yards of debris. Helene and Milton were 2 million, 5 times more than the last 3 hurricanes combined, and we moved it in 90 days.
Who are we as a city to you, in your eyes?
I'm not going to be distracted or intimidated on an issue because I know the purpose is moving our city forward. They literally stopped mass murderers. We had a gentleman a couple years ago came over, shot 2 or 3 people.
Hello, you beautiful people. Today's episode 100, and I am honored, grateful, and just ecstatic today to be sitting here with Mayor Ken Welch. Welcome to the show of Talkin St. Pete.
Great to be here, Ryan. Thank you.
It's ecstatic. I was telling you before the show, when I started this back in 2022, I only knew 2 business owners. Mm-hmm. And now to be sitting here at episode 100 with you is pretty ecstatic at a pivotal time in history, too.
Well, nothing was going on since 2022 I don't know
happened.
What you could even talk about.
Right, nothing's happened, right? But no, the show, we've spoke with so many local business owners, artists, city officials. Had Mike Sweezy on.
Great guy.
The senior docent from the Dali Museum. I mean, we've restaurateurs, bar owners, developers, everyone who's shaping the city of St. Pete and keeping it special as being, a local place. And that's something that you and I were kind of chatting about before we got started of you wanting to keep St. Pete what it was because you grew up here.
I did.
3rd generation St. Pete. Is that correct?
That's right.
If I'm not mistaken, your father ran for mayor at one point, right?
He was a 3-term city council member. He ran for mayor, coincidentally, 30 years before I ran. So 1991, I believe, he ran for mayor. We're talking about Apple. I got my AirPods in the pocket.
Yeah, that's okay.
And so, he ran for council when I was in high school. He was the second African-American elected to city council, served 2 terms, had to sit out a term, and then served a 3rd term in 93. And so, that was kind of my introduction to politics, although at the time, like any red-blooded American kid, I said, I'm never going to do what Pop is doing. That looks crazy. But later, as I matured and got in college and saw the impact that was having, and started just weighing in on issues. My mom always taught me to speak up, so I'd write these letters to the editor and weigh in on stuff. And my name kind of got out there as a young guy who was weighing in on issues. I even wrote so many letters to the editor to the then St. Pete Times, before they became Tampa Bay Times, that they made me like an honorary editor. They had these My View columnists, people from around the community, who'd write in on issues. And finally, I ran for school board in 98. My dad was a teacher. All of his siblings were teachers. And I still believe that's the best investment we can make, is turning a young person on to that passion, that God-given talent they have early in life. I lost that race in 98. And I always tell young kids, whether it's Great American Teaching or just talking to young people, you're going to fail at some point, but use that as a learning experience to propel you to your next success. A couple of years later, I ran for county commission, 5 terms there, and then had an opportunity when my good friend Rick Kreisman was termed out as mayor to run for mayor back in 21.
And how has your world been these last 4 years? I mean, what's it like? Because so I'll tell you, like on the show, I'm always so curious of the seed of thought of when it happens. So let's go to that for a moment, and because I think it's interesting and it will help people understand your mindset. When you made that, where were you, and where did the thought come from to where you had that initial inkling of you're going to put your hat in the ring for mayor?
Well, it had come up over the years.
So was it a long-term plan, like a plan that was drawn out?
No, I believe in kind of doing the job you have, and I knew on county commission there were certain things we were trying to get in place, like our support for housing, penny for Pinellas, those kinds of things. So I love doing what I was doing, also working with the Florida Association of Counties. And we had people in office who we were moving in the same direction. When Rick Kreisman was terming out, I saw at the horizon, some pretty big projects that will change the trajectory of St. Pete for decades to come, historic gas plant being one of the largest. And I said, I grew up in a historic gas plant. My granddad's woodyard was right at 5th and 16th. He was uprooted by the interstates. Our church was at 14th and 4th. We were uprooted in the pursuit of economic development that then became the pursuit of baseball. So I've lived the historic gas plant history, and I just thought that was very important that someone have the right perspective, that the development of those 86 acres is not a blank slate. There are promises embedded in that land, and that if we all understand that history, we can move forward and be so successful as a city. I wanted to bring that perspective. I also wanted to bring the perspective of what St. Pete could achieve, because I love Tampa. My good friend Jane Castor just endorsed me.
I saw that.
But we were kind of looked at as an underdog, that we couldn't put together a competitive bid to keep baseball in St. Pete. And I ran on the prospect of we would not only put together the most competitive package, but we'd also have strong partnership from the county, because we'd asked the county to partner with us. And we were successful in doing that. The county put forward more money than the city of St. Pete did. They put forward over $300 million. And so we put together that successful bid. All the documents were signed, 12 agreements between the county, the city, the Rays, and Hines. And the slogan was "Here to Stay" in summer 2024. And then the hurricanes came. And after that, the Rays decided that they couldn't fulfill their part of the obligation. But that was one of the prime reasons I ran, was to put together that kind of effort, and that's why I'm still focused on making sure we move forward on the development of that area.
Okay. So there was a whole thing there, because I was curious on the seed of thought, right? Right on you saying, "Hey, I'm going to be mayor one day." Right?
Well, it's who else can bring that perspective and put together those relationships, those partnerships, and move us forward. Because I didn't see that happening any other way. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the 86 acres. So let's just jump right into that, because obviously it's a hot talking point with everything that's going on. And I'm staying in the middle of all this, because I don't know what it's like to run a city, Mayor. I have no idea. But there's people that are upset that the Rays leaving?
No, the Rays are here till 2028. I mean, that's in the contract.
What's the future after 2028? Because there's a lot of talk that there's the proposal that's already going on in Tampa.
What I've always said is that we put together our best effort. We did that. When that effort was terminated by the Rays, because of the great work of our city team, our legal team, we got back development rights that we hadn't had since 1995. The Rays had held those development. So anything that was built, they get half the development rights.
Right.
We have all those development rights now. We also, though, were obligated to give them a place to play through the end of the contract in 2028. That's one of the reasons we repaired Tropicana Field on time and under budget. A lot of folks thought we couldn't get it done. An international effort with manufacturing in Europe and assembly.
I was there for opening day. It was a special moment.
It looks like it's brand new.
It was a special moment.
Yeah. And so my thought has always been that deal is so complex, even if they, with the new ownership, who they're working very well with us, put together a deal in Hillsborough, I still think they might need a couple years or more of extension at Tropicana Field.
Let's go through that. And I just because there's so much there, right? Because there was a delay of vote that happened. So tell me what caused that delay, and why was that the sticking point? Because it seems so minor. It seems like there had to be something more going on, and there's so many rumors on the street. And so I just want to know, like, from your sitting in your seat where you're at, we thought this was a done deal. Why the roof blew off? Okay, fix it. Why did that cause anything? And then there's a delay in this vote, and now all of a sudden
none of those were a reason to back out of the deal. First of all, the delay that the county had in voting on bonds, they weren't required to vote on that for several months. So there was no real delay. again, we just been hit by 2 hurricanes.
You're right.
Everybody had a lot on their plate,
Yeah,
including
of course,
the county.
of course.
So I understand that delay. The repair of the trop is the city's responsibility, you know, and it was estimated some $60 million. It's going to come in a little bit less than that. But we've already received about $30 million in reimbursement from FEMA and from insurance. We think we're going to get most of that back from FEMA and from insurance. And so that's on our tab. That wasn't on the Rays tab. So I really didn't buy either of those explanations from the previous Rays group. And that's one of the reasons I was really firm in saying that we were not going to put another dime into that deal, that we had a deal. We said this was the maximum that we could put into it. And we were hearing just vague numbers of $50 million to $300 million additional dollars from the city. That was not happening.
Well, it's such a large range.
And for what? Because we were repairing the stadium. Even if the new stadium was delayed by a year, it's still a 30-year contract. You still got 30 years of revenues on a brand new stadium. So we never came to agreement on that with the previous Rays ownership. The relationship with the county was destroyed if you listen to any of the county commissioners. So that was not moving forward with the previous ownership.
Got it. And how's the relationship with the new ownership?
It's very good. I mean, they were clear when they came in that they want a site in Hillsborough. And I said, you know, that's fine. We're going to, you know, make sure that we fulfill our commitment to give you a place to play through 2028 if at some point they decide they want to ask for an extension. We're open to talking about that. It's got to be fair to the city. We've got to receive compensation for that. But we are moving on because we've got so many other options that, coincidentally, tonight we're having an open house at the Coliseum.
I know. The timing of all this is wild.
With 4 shortlisted groups who have given us proposals for how we develop the tribe, how we develop and bring back what I call the J-HOP principles, because there's a lot to talk about what the benefits would be. But for folks, I try to make it simple in an acronym. J-HOP is the school that's right across the street, Johns Hopkins. But it's jobs, it's housing, it's economic opportunity, and it's honoring the promises that were made to the community. We've had thousands, literally, of conversations with the community over the last 10 years, including 1,000 in 2022 when we had community conversations before the RFP went out. And they all come back to those 4 things. Where are the benefits from those now 60 acres of asphalt that have been asphalt for 40 years? How do you turn that into jobs, housing, economic opportunity?
Well, it's super important for the city. And I think there's so many people that like love the Hines Rays deal, you know, and we're sad to see that go. And now I'm like, you know, again, I don't know anything, but I'm in the game of real estate, you know, run a brokerage of commercial and residential agents. And it's tough for me to understand how the plan can come together with the ambiguity of not knowing what the Rays are doing to go forward on such a large project, and you know, and I know you've seen some pushback of like we want to keep pushing and get this done, and there's some votes saying, hey, maybe we need to slow down a little bit. So can you talk to that a little bit?
So there's no ambiguity in my view in terms of what the Rays are doing. They're looking in Hillsborough.
So that's we're planning now as the Rays are gone after 2028, unless they say something otherwise.
They are planning to do that. They still have Tropicana Field through 2028, and in my view through 2030, if they need a couple of years of extension. Most of the plans that have been proposed start the development on MLK and moving westward, so you're not impacting the Trop for several years. And even on the west side of 16th Street, where one of the proposals has senior housing, which I really like, that one impacted as well. The only impact might be parking, so they'll have to work that out. So we've got time. And even then, the Trop has just been refurbished. It's used for things other than baseball. I had to go to Clearwater for my daughter's graduation from St. Pete College. So it serves a lot of other community functions. So it's not something we need to just demolish right away.
Yeah.
So they'll have a place to play. And if by some miracle they want to come back and renew that deal, there are options for a new stadium at that location that we'd agreed on. But it'll be a whole new discussion because we don't have the partnership with the county that we had at that point. That relationship will have to be rebuilt. the funding will be different. We are drawing down that CRA. So I think it's improbable. I think the Trop is where they'll be in St. Pete for the near future, and if they want an extension, I think that's will be longer term.
So we're planning that these proposals are going with no baseball field, because I mean, putting these RFPs together is quite a pricey process, for these developers.
Well, one of them, and I hate this because I'm in the middle of a selection process, so I don't want to talk about one over the other, but they do have an option for a new ball field.
Yeah.
Or the other thing we're looking at is a convention center, because we've talked about a right-sized convention center on this side of the bay for years, and now we have a study underway with the county to look at the feasibility of that.
I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I've been talking about on the show and so curious about, if the Rays are not here post 2028, 2030, whatever, I think that's splitting hairs, right, in terms of time, right, because we're talking the next 30 years of St. Pete and plus. 1.3 to 1.4 million visitors come through for the Rays every year, 80-some home games. That's a huge economic impact on the local businesses, Ferg's being right there, and all the other businesses, as, sorry, I thought I came one out. As that part of the Edge District, it continues to develop with the businesses. They're almost kind of previous to all this falling apart. Those businesses are there expecting that traffic,
right.
And us being so local business strong, 1.4 million people coming through the city. That's a lot of economic impact. And is a convention center? I don't know what the answer is. It's really hard to predict. How can we replace that? I guess it's a rounded way of that's a lot of money coming through the city. Pre-game, post-game. All the games leading up to it, and you have all these restaurants, all these other local businesses that are there that are going to feel that, and they felt it bad. I mean, Ferg's was down 60%.
Absolutely, and that's why I pressed to repair the Trop, even with the previous ownership in the council chambers opposing that. So that was an argument we had with the previous ownership, but then they got on board and we got it done. So that economic benefit is important. That's one of the reasons we're having this study with the county to say what is the true economic benefit of a right-sized convention center, not to compete with Tampa, not as large as Tampa, but something that would be right-sized on our side of the bay that connects with downtown, Sunrunner connection to the beaches. We think that would bring a lot of visitation to St. Pete, and we just want to see what those numbers might be.
Yeah, I'd be super
along
curious.
with all the office space, all the other jobs that are coming to that area through these various proposals, that will fill that gap as well.
Yeah. The acres. I mean, I've been asked to speak on the news on it, and things just because of I don't know why this is a show or whatever. And man, what a difficult. 86 acres. I mean, it's one of the largest urban development projects in the city, in the country right now. I'm sorry. Is there any reason to try to press for the master plan versus just parceling this thing out and letting it do it like something like there's a counter argument to that. It's not as fun, right? It's not as like this big master plan, but it almost makes a little more sense because in my sense, technology is changing so fast.
Right.
The city is growing so fast. And to say that, hey, we're going to have a master plan on 86 acres, which is massive, to think the needs are going to be the same 17 years from now as they are, like with AI and everything changing in the job market, it's kind of hard to predict.
It is, and we've planned for decades, going back to the HKS plan in 2016, the CRA plans, of course, the plans under the Kreisman administration and my administration. And again, it comes down to those four, jobs, housing, economic opportunity, and honoring their promises. But you're right, technology is a game changer. Who would have thought that we'd be eliminating parking along the Sunrunner route like we just did last week? And it makes sense because with driverless cars coming, with eVTOLs in the next decade, you'll be flying, your Uber helicopter to Tampa or wherever you need to go. And so there'll be less need for parking. And, a couple of these proposals have a heavy tech component. So they're tying into emerging technologies in our growing innovation district. So I think, from my perspective, getting the inclusive economic development fundamentals locked into this agreement so it carries forward is very important. Because who knows what a future administration might decide about that. There's certain folks who I think get more exposure than than they should, say we ought to plan first. I say, okay. So I met with them and said, what do you mean by plan first? And they had no plan first option. It was really sell it at the highest and best use and let the city run the development. Well, I was there when the promises were made, and the promises were not, give us your homes, give us your businesses, give us your churches, and we're going to sell it for $5 million condos. That was not the promise. It was that in return for that, there'll be opportunities for everyone to participate in the economic development. There'll be a housing that's affordable for everyone. And so I want those promises to be locked into this agreement going forward.
So we're going back to the promises of the 1980s.
Right.
Of when historic gas plant was bulldozed, essentially.
It's a promise that was made by our government to our community. And I think it's still valid.
I don't disagree, because we don't like to see displacement. And in the same token, I don't think we expected St. Pete to see the growth that it's seeing right now.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's kind of hard. Like I say all the time, change is inevitable. We can't stop change. And I'd rather see change happen for growth rather than decline. And it's this weird balance of like, how do you keep affordable housing and keep prices low while growth is happening? And we've seen it in other cities like Austin, right? Austin is blown up. Costs are through the roof. I don't think we're there yet. Yeah. But I think I think we have the potential of not to be Austin, but our own flavor of that, right? We're kind of compared to Austin in our art scene and the growth that we're having.
We're going to be a unique flavor of St. Pete, and we do get the Austin comparison a lot. But I think it is about being strategic and being balanced. I'm really excited that the proposals we're seeing today have more affordable and workforce housing in them than the Hines Rays agreement did. And they're being really creative about how they're doing that, but also how they're tying into our current businesses, our innovation district, our health sciences district. And so I see the opportunity to do both. And in terms of equity, just imagine if you were a family that didn't have to move, that wasn't forced to move, and you owned property in that area now. What would your personal wealth be? And so it is about balance, but it's also remembering there was a real economic impact to folks that were compelled to move by their government.
Do you think, and this is me being ignorant and kind of just direct, that affordable housing or anything that gets built is going to even go to those families that were impacted? You know what I mean? Or is that just coming in for a generation now?
It's not a one-on-one. I mean, I know there are some who are looking forward to that, folks who are still renting, but it's the idea of making sure that we've got housing that's affordable to folks that make our city run.
I agree with that.
And so some of them will be descendants, and that's not really the focus to say that every descendant will have a place there. It's the concept of this land was given up with a promise of affordable and workforce housing being on the site. That's what we're going to focus on. And if there are 5 descendants who determine they wanted to be there, that'll be a great thing as well.
We could stay on that for the whole episode. I don't want to keep doing that, but I'm curious of what you've seen, because obviously the city is not the same city that you took over in 2022.
Yeah.
Right. There's been so much growth from the COVID and the amount of people that moved here. Real estate's up 20 to 30%. If not, you've had major luxury towers go up downtown. You have numerous businesses. I mean, I've gotten the history lesson that downtown St. Pete was not a place that you hung out back in the time.
You could hang out freely and do whatever you want.
Talking about
no one was down here.
The Vinoy being boarded up and nowhere to go to eat. And now, we walk up down Central or Beach Drive, and it's humming.
It's amazing.
It's humming. So what do you say to that changeover, and how has that changed your thinking and policy decision?
So when we came in, we had 5 pillars for progress that we focus on, and one of those from the start was housing affordability, housing opportunities for all, and that continues to be a focus. Now the buzzword is affordability, but we knew that coming in. I just know that from being a father and having daughters that are looking for places to stay. It's difficult. Family members and others who are commuting from Manatee or Hillsborough because they just get more bang for their buck, even Pasco and Citrus. And so that has been a pillar. We've, won awards for our approach to being innovative. We use more of our ARPA funding than any other city in the state for housing, for example. We received an award for that. we're partnering with Habitat for Humanity on a couple of projects for affordable townhomes. So we're getting folks into home ownership, folks that make 80% AMI and less. And so we're focusing on that. We were the first in the state to adopt the YIGBY, Yes in God's Backyard, so that places of worship, churches have a lot of free land, convert some of that to affordable housing and have an expedited process for doing that. We led the way on that along with Representative Cross and Senator Roussan led that effort for us. And we're the first in the state to take advantage of legislation that allows you to use industrial or commercial land, convert that to affordable or workforce housing. And the Fairfield Avenue apartments just north of Gibbs High will be the first, again, in the state, 264 units, all affordable or workforce in the state. So we're really being aggressive about that. To me, that is the way that we can impact affordability the most is the housing component.
And so what's different about the city now from when you took office in 2022?
Well, obviously, we've been through 5 hurricanes in my first 3 years.
Yeah, so walk us through that, because the last ones were quite a doozy, being 17 days apart, and devastated neighborhoods like Shore Acres.
Yeah, and it, I think, showed gaps in our infrastructure, in our systems, whether it's a water billing system or whether it's a 70-year-old sewer plant that had never faced 7 feet of storm surge in the history. It showed gaps, and not that previous administrations hadn't invested, because they had, but they hadn't invested for the level of impact that we're seeing from sea level rise and extreme weather. We just have never seen a 7-foot storm surge ever. And because that would have overtopped our sewer plant, Northeast and the Southwest, I had to tell our folks, okay, don't flush your toilets, don't do laundry, because we're going to have to shut these plants down. That had never happened before. So we need to invest in our infrastructure, get those buildings hardened, lift the electrical components, use technology like the AquaFence, which we've already installed around some of the lift stations, including the one at Albert Whitted. And we've got to invest more earlier to get that done rather than waiting 10, 15 years. So we'll be rolling out a referendum this November. It's called the General Obligation Bond, or GO Bond, to support our hardening program, which I'm calling SPAR. So I'm Spartan, Lakewood Spartan. So I tried to get that acronym, but I couldn't get the full acronym. But it's St. Pete Agile Resilience. We've got to be more agile in our response. And so it's a range of projects, about $600 million to strengthen our plants, our pumps and our pipes to move water, and then specific neighborhood programs. We have got to close those gaps in resiliency, because the economy doesn't work if your city is not resilient. If you don't have, running water, if you can't flush your toilets, all those other things. And so it showed that we've changed. We're seeing flooding in areas that have never flooded in the city. We're seeing tidal flooding in some of the coastal neighborhoods, and we've got to up our game in terms of our infrastructure and our systems to deal with that.
I want to go deeper into that, and as you were saying all that, I have so much empathy just for this role, because man, all the different hats you have to wear, and and you take the punches. Of the water billing gets screwed up. It's your fault, isn't it?
You're responsible for what happens on your watch, and you can't look backwards and fix a problem. So we'll. That system is a legacy system. It is being updated, and it was a perfect storm for bad pun, but you had old analog water meters, you had an old legacy system that was doing estimating, and you had more damaged properties than you ever had, all hit at the same time. And so we're working on each of those. New advanced digital meters will be partially funded by this SPAR bond if we get it. And so look, I say be careful what you ask God for, because you don't know what you're going to get. But really, I can't think of another person I'd rather be in this position through those times, because my focus is on making sure we're a resilient city for my kids and hopefully one day their kids and that whole generation. And it's not about doing the convenient thing or pointing the finger. It's about telling our community what we need to do to make ourselves resilient. Mm-hmm. I hear all the time, right after the storms, as we went out into neighborhoods, okay, what are you going to do to get this water out of my neighborhood? This is what we need to do. and we're going to bring that to the voters.
What system has been put into place for the cleanup efforts? There was
Yeah.
I know it's super tough, but if we read the comments,
comments.
the people want that cleaned up yet, the next day, right?
Yeah,
Which is not reasonable, but
Yeah.
there was felt like it could have happened a little bit faster. Whether it could, that's why I said I have empathy for this,
Yeah.
because there's you're wearing so many hats, and
Yeah.
you can't foresee that these things are going to happen. At the same time, people said, hey, we want faster response, knowing that it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Oh, absolutely.
What types of things could you
So
let everyone
I
know?
certainly understand the trauma of not just Helene, but then Milton right behind it. And one of the things that we just won a governor's hurricane conference award for was our hometown haulers program that we put together in between Helene and Milton. So Helene hit, we've got all this debris on the ground. Here comes another hurricane. Are these going to be flying projectiles? So not only do we have our contractor work on it, all our city staff, but we got an idea from the community. Once you got all these guys and gals in Ford F-150s who can drive, they have insurance, have them help you haul the stuff. We did more than we set up a program, 5,000 loads, and they moved a lot of material, and we did that in between hurricanes. So that's just one example of us being innovative. But look, I understand the trauma of seeing your belongings in front of your house for weeks on end. They were in front of my house as well. But when you look at the reality, and even the state Department of Emergency Management Director Guthrie gave us kudos. We moved. I need a smaller cup. So the last 3 hurricanes combined were 400,000 cubic yards of debris. So that's like 400. Helene and Milton were 2 million.
It was a lot.
5 times more than the last 3 hurricanes combined, and we moved it in 90 days. That's outstanding performance. If there's a way to move it faster, let me know. And also, we had no place to take the debris because the county came in. Remember, the county and the state were having a battle. So the state came in and took over the county landfill. So we had to create our own debris management sites in the city to facilitate moving the debris. And we did that at 3 sites that happened to be vacant because housing was going in later, Azalea, Coquina Key, and we took us a while to find one in the northeast section. And so we did all that in 90 days, and there's no way to do a better job on that. And so I'm proud of the job my team did.
No, I think that's what I say. I have empathy for all that, because I know it's not like you're like in the times of turmoil. You're having to figure out problems that weren't problems before. And you got to be resilient.
And people have to be patient. And that kind of played into some of the politics of today. And I knew that, but somebody's got to be focused and not be distracted. And I knew that there'd be some political fallout. Some folks are threatening, come to my neighborhood, or, we're going to do this. Well, you do that because I've got neighborhoods all across the city. We've got a plan. We've got a contractor who does this every day. We're going to get it done in 90 days. Be patient. And I'm not going to be intimidated because we've got a job.
Yeah, you got a job. Yeah. It's unforeseeable.
We got the job done.
Yeah, it's not like you had months of planning, right?
No.
But now that you say, okay, hey, the chances of that happening again are probably more likely than less. Is the same effort, same plan in place, or is there a new plan?
It is, but here's the reality, and I just believe in straight talk. Remember, those 2 of those sites, Coquina Key and the Azalea site, happened to be vacant because there was going to be affordable housing and workforce and market rate housing projects there. So as those projects go up, those aren't available, if we have another storm. And so what's our next option for a debris management site? We did one on the Deuces as well. It's going to be our parks. And I've floated this with some neighborhoods. Look, we're going to need places to put this debris for a few weeks. We're running out of those affordable or housing sites that happen to be vacant. We're going to have to move to parks if this happens again. So folks need to know that up front. That's the price that we'll pay to move the debris out of your neighborhood, but it has to go somewhere. In the interim, because of the FEMA process, the monitoring and all those things, you just can't take it to one site. And so we're prepared for that. Our contractor has worked with us for a number of years. They did a great job. we also had to up our reimbursement rate because when that kind of storm hits, folks are trying to outbid you in other cities. And so we had to pay more to keep our contractor on board, which we've done. So I think we've learned lessons from this, but our team did a tremendous job moving 2 million cubic yards of debris.
No, it's a lot of debris, no doubt about it. You know, I like to hear there's a readiness plan.
Oh, yeah.
It's continuing to say, hey, okay, what if we have to move that much debris again? What's the plan and to be ready as the next storm rolls around? You know, because I'm prior military, so we're always always ready. Right?
That's right. That's right.
We train for the worst and prepare, and you got to have your bags packed and ready to go at all times. Obviously, as storm season approaches. Okay, so that's a lot of infrastructure stuff happening with the city, of course, with the growth and economics and all that. What do you do for you? So just you personally, like, you know, you manage a lot. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders, stress management. You know, what's your day-to-day looking like? How do you manage your own mental health? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you know, I know that all of this is for a season. And so I don't mind burning the candle at both ends because if I'm blessed to have another term, it's going to be another 4 years. We're going to work every day to move our city as far as we can. So, you know, it is, you know, there are peaks and valleys. June 1st is coming, you know, the first day of hurricane season. And so that always adds a layer. We're already prepping for that, of course. We're in the middle of budget season, so I'm going to give council a recommended budget in a few weeks. We're always keeping an eye on Tallahassee and their legislation. We're dealing with some impacts from legislation that they passed. Probably we'll see some kind of property tax item on the bill, which will have a big impact on us if it passes in terms of how we fund police and fire. So it's just always something that we're watching. Resiliency, again, is community and economic resiliency is really a fundamental element in our budget this year and then going forward. So all those things, it's a balance. I've got a great team that, you know, probably most impactful thing I did was getting a team in place, starting with Rob Gertis, who I hired as the city administrator, brought in Chief Watts as fire chief, certainly kept Anthony Holloway, I think, the best police chief in the nation. And the folks they've hired, like Amy Foster, who's housing and neighborhood services, just innovative folks all the way down the line. So a cohesive team, they buy into our principles, our governing approach, and, you know, I trust them. Mm-hmm. When I was making the decision on whether to repair the trop or not, you know, I talked to, you know, Raul, who's our engineer and architect, and Brajesh and some of our other folks, and said, look, can we do this, and can we do it in time for the 26th season? And they looked at all the, you know, all the details, the procurement, the sourcing, the materials, all that stuff, and they came back and said, yeah, we can do it, Mayor. And based on that, the faith I have in our team, we decided to move forward.
Well, this is strong. You know, leadership is empowering others, right? And
yeah, having the right people and then trusting them.
Yeah, you got to, because you can't do it all, right?
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, you got to have all that. And so, thinking about, you know, what's going forward. You said, you know, if you're blessed to have another 4 years, burning the candle at both ends. What's your biggest focus and what's important, you know, for these next 4 years? As you got, you know, some strong opponents that are now running against you, you know, this year, Charlie Kreit's been one of them. Mm-hmm. You know, versus what they were campaigning on and what you're campaigning on now in the next 4 years. I mean, knowing now you got a running start, right?
Yeah.
What do you want to keep going? What do you see? I mean, the city is continually having an amazing growth. More people are moving here every single day. Businesses are coming here. You got the Foot Locker deal.
Who they were acquired, unfortunately, but it seems like every week we're in the top 10 for something, for entrepreneurs, for millennials, best places to live, best run government in the state of Florida. And that doesn't happen by coincidence. And so continuing that work that we've already started with our team, the focus on the 5 pillars, housing opportunities, youth and opportunities, economic development, arts, infrastructure, all those things, safe neighborhoods. Continue to focus on those things, but the resilience piece is vital, and it starts with the SPAR GO bond vote. It's like our penny for Pinellas, which we've approved for some 40 years. It funds all the, the fire stations, police stations, libraries. It's like that, but it's for stormwater and water. It's what the next big step we need to be resilient. That focus, along with everything else we're doing, is important. And continuing the job. I made promises to our community, told them what I'd do, and did it. And part of that is sometimes telling folks no, folks who are not used to hearing no, but we're going to stick with our principles because it's the right thing to do for our city. And so I'm looking forward to the campaign, talking to folks about what we've done. No other candidate has done the job as mayor, and certainly hasn't done it in the last 4 years of challenges.
I think it's, we talked about, and it's fun to look at what's been accomplished, and I'm curious what's next, right? Going forward, what's the thing of like, we got another 4 years. Let's just say you got the job, Mayor. You're in it.
Yeah.
4 years ahead. We're going to 2030, 2031. What's your focus for the city, as it's not the same city that when you sat in 2022?
It's those pillars. Again, housing will remain a priority. We did a global Tampa Bay trip to London, and the London mayor, his number one issue was affordable housing. So it's not just a St. Pete or Florida or even a thing affecting the United States. It's global. Having that base of affordable and workforce housing is critical to our economy. Folks aren't going to drive 3 counties to come and work here for an extended amount of time. So those pillars remain. They have been adopted by our community. When I ran on those 5 pillars. And we'll, expand those as we need to if certain issues come up. We've dealt with youth violence in really strategic ways, trying to do wraparound around kids early when they get into trouble. We had folks vote on a $1 million project in last year's budget, and they voted on a youth intervention program that the police are handling. And so doing those innovative kind of things, making sure our infrastructure, our systems are updated is going to be a focus. And of course, safe neighborhoods remains a priority for us. So again, working with St. Pete Police and Fire Rescue, I'm proud to have the endorsements from both fire and police unions because we work together so effectively. And just remember who we are as a city and not being distracted by some of the crazy shifts at the state and national level.
Yeah.
If we can stay focused, we can move forward.
Who are we as a city to you, in your eyes?
We're an inclusive city that opens its arms to everyone who can understand our focus and our priorities. And so whether it's a Kathy Wood who's coming down with the Arc Invest, or folks who just visit here and say, man, what a great place. Or folks who are working here remotely during COVID and say, well, I'm going to stay here. Understand that we are a community that welcomes everyone, where everyone is valued, and that we believe that inclusive progress is not a notion where someone has to lose, right? It moves us all forward, and having honest conversations about who we are and what our history is very important. Because if you can have an understanding of where someone is coming from, I got to tell you my Uber story. Did I not tell you my Uber story? So I drove Uber in 2018 as a county commission chair because I worked in Clearwater, and I love technology, I love driving. So I did 1,000 rides. 4.97 customer service rating. I got
you got to throw that in there.
Look, because I believe in customer service.
Yeah.
But along the way, as I'm doing that 26 miles to Clearwater, you come across people who you normally would not talk to, and you drive routes that okay, that's why that connects. I never knew. And you learn people are focused on everyday things. They're not, pulling up Twitter every day to look at the latest politics. They're trying to get their grandmother or their mom or their kids to school or to a therapy session. They're concerned about the price of bread and eggs and now gas and those kinds of things. If we can focus on those things, that's where most people are. And that's my approach as mayor.
Makes sense. Some of those things are outside the city's control, right, in terms of gas and all that.
Absolutely.
But you're right in all that. And you bring up a good point because I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. Public school systems across the nation are struggling. And, I have a lot of friends and entrepreneurs in the area that say, well, they got to put their kids in private. What do you say to those families that don't feel comfortable just with the infrastructure that's there for the public schools currently?
So, my dad and all of his siblings were teachers, so, I have a soft spot in my heart for all teachers. I know the job they do even to this day. I went to an award ceremony for our Teachers of the Year, and I made a comment. I said, how many of you are coming out of your pockets to get your classrooms ready? Almost everybody. So they are still, paying their own money to set their classrooms. So we can do better there. Much of that is controlled by the state, of course. But both my daughters went to public schools. We were fortunate enough to get them in fundamental schools. And what's the difference? I mean, Lakeview Fundamental, old school, doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but you got parents involved. You've got expectations set high for kids, and they're the highest performing schools. Now, Pinellas County schools have increased their rating over the last few years. They're doing a good job. But, we've had a great experience in public schools in the fundamental track. And so the question is, why can't all schools have that fundamental performance? And then you get into other societal issues, parental involvement. You've got parents who aren't involved either because they can't be or because they're working or they're just not. They're neglecting their responsibilities, to tell you the truth. So it's understandable why some folks want to, let's just go to private, but we'll have, the best. But my view is always most folks who don't have a choice are going to end up in a public school. So let's make them as high performing as we can. And, my experience in fundamental schools is that they can give your kids a great education. They went to Lakeview and then they went to Thurgood Marshall.
It's a bigger conversation than just local here to St. Pete, right?
Can I add one other thing?
Yeah, sure.
We decided to add one of our 5 pillars as education and youth opportunities because I do believe the city can do more to provide that support for kids when they're out of school, weekend, that kind of time. So I used to serve on the Juvenile Welfare Board, which does a lot of that on a countywide basis. They have an ad valorem taxing authority. But as a city, we want to fill those gaps and help those kids, whether it's, tutoring, out of school time. We're doing a lot of work with Shirley Proctor Puller program in partnership with the Pinellas County Schools, just to give those students every opportunity and every support they need so that they can be successful. The city does have a role, although we're not the primary educator.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, tough problem.
Nothing more important. I remember I told you that's the first office I ran for was school board because...
No, it's super important. I mean,
absolutely.
That's the youth, and you think of all the new families, and that's where, like St. Pete has evolved, right, from 1980s to now. And there's a way more higher population here. There's a lot more money here in general in terms of the businesses that are here and everything else. And so I think expectations and standards, that happens with change, right? People expect more. And I think our education system as a country is a fundamental big question that's bigger than just you being mayor, right, and handling the issues here that start from state and country level. So I'm curious about that because, all right, being mayor, one of your running mates was opponents was governor, and now coming to mayor, which some would say could be a step backwards.
Well, we always say local government is government closest to the people.
I believe that to be true. And well, first off, I really appreciate this conversation. I know we're bringing up tough topics, but these are the ones people want to hear about, right? And it's my job.
Comes with the office.
Yep. And I love St. Pete. Love it. This is home. My roots are here. My business is here. My property here. I mean, this is. I'm a voice for the city, and so I'm rooting for it strong. And I love everything here, and all the business owners that are here make this place so special. Our conserved waterfront. Everything we do is amazing, and so obviously, I'm not a political person. You know how much research I had to do to even have this conversation.
Impressive, though.
I'm not a political person. You know, some people try to talk. I purposely don't watch politics because when people ask me a question, I don't want to have to. I don't want to have an opinion. I don't want to have an answer. I don't. I care about technology and business news. That's it.
And you are an Apple man, so
I am an Apple
okay.
man. Yeah,
so we're doing well.
We're there. Steve Jobs is one of my, you know, I never got to meet him, but he's a mentor from a distance, and R.I.P. to him. So all that being said, right? We said there's state issues. One of your opponents was governor. Now coming into the mayor, some would say, you know, you guys were friends. He endorsed you at one point. I don't know if friends is a word you would use, but you said he endorsed you.
Well, that's definitely a different concept of friendship than I have. So
okay. Well, he endorsed you when you first ran, correct?
And I've endorsed him, but
right.
that's not necessarily friendship because I haven't heard a word from him this whole time
Fair.
about running. So
Fair.
a friend would at least say, you know, I'm thinking about running. So
yeah, right. Okay, so there's something there. I mean, what is that? Knowing that you're up against all this, and like, you know, the storms weren't your fault. That Mother Nature does that. People will say these things, stuff going on with the Rays. I mean, I'm just curious of like what's going on in your head with everything happening. You know,
truth always wins. You know, I've been a county commissioner for 20 years, and so I've seen these kinds of issues come up before. I've seen folks try to reset history, tell a different narrative than the actual truth. And what I found is that the voters make the right call. And in this case, the voters have seen me for 5 years. Starting with COVID, they know what happened with the Rays deal. They know that we had signed agreements and that we worked real hard to put together those partnerships. They know what happened with the marina that he's bringing up now. That was a deal that council killed, and you needed 6 votes because it's on the waterfront. And so the truth in every case will carry the day. I'm not worried about that. And leading as a strong mayor is much different than leading at a state level. We are on the ground. I am spending the night in the EOC, which he brought up. Believe me, I got the scars on my back from sleeping in a chair. And when we were there, the EOC couldn't flush toilets or shower either. So you had the whole crew there living through that. Did the readouts for our police officers as they were going out into the darkness in the morning, into a warlike landscape. You know, power lines down, no lights. That's what they were going out to. I talked to those officers before they went out. So I know the work we've done. I know how we work with our firefighters, how we work with our staff under Rob Gertis. And I'm willing to stand on that. If you haven't been here and done that as mayor, even through some of the social issues that we've, you know, talked to the community about and said, look, this is what we stand for. You know, I'm proud to stand on that record. And just because you had a state run for several state offices, that doesn't make up for not being present during the very difficult past 4 or 5 years that we've had, and he hasn't been present at all. He's been in Minnesota, as a matter of fact. So
fair. You know, it's this conversation has pulled me in, and I've learned more in the last week or so as I've prepared for this than anything else, and it's all interesting to watch from afar.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And so, you know, let's talk about you as you know, how you're spending your time and enjoying the city, because I think that's super important, right? So where do you like to do? What are you hanging out? Like, how do you spend the little bit of free time that you get?
Yeah, there's not a lot of free time.
Yeah,
I mean,
a little bit.
It's 7 days. You know, Sundays. You know, a couple times a month. I don't want the pastor to get mad at me. I play guitar at Friendship, Missionary Baptist Church. I play guitar for years. I ride a Harley, Road King Special.
Nice.
That's a nice therapy session.
A little wind therapy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, watch sports, that kind of thing. I love our waterfront. I've got my spots. I'm not going to share where they are. Bicycle as well. You know, our trail system is outstanding. I love biking on the trail. E-bikes are a concern for me.
Tell me about that.
Well, because on my Harley, you're going to hear me a block away. You're going to know I'm there. Either the engine or the stereo. But e-bikes are so fast and they're silent.
Yep.
And
All you hear is the rubber on the road.
Yeah, just coming here today, I just saw some flying, no helmets. And it's just the difference in speed between the e-bikes and either a regular bike or pedestrian. That concerns me. It's a great form of transit, don't get me wrong. And more folks are going to use those. But they go so fast, and folks are thinking they're invincible on them. But I have a regular bike, a Trek, that I bought from ABC Bikes on Central, great place. And those are kind of the ways I relax.
Yeah.
But you're always thinking about the job, even when you're trying to relax for a minute.
Yeah. What right now has you up at night the most? You know, what are you thinking about?
I really, so I get texts from Chief Holloway or Chief Kovacev if he's out on things that are happening in the neighborhoods with PD. They do such a tremendous job of keeping us safe, of stopping bad things from happening through intelligence and other work that they're doing. It's incredible. They literally stopped mass murderers. We had a gentleman a couple years ago came over, shot 2 or 3 people unprovoked. They tracked this guy down in Hillsborough, and that guy would have been a serial killer. I mean, he already killed a couple of people and tried to kill a third. And just the techniques that they have, the dedication of those officers, most folks would never know about those things that they're working on. So it doesn't keep me up at night when I get a text from Chief. It shoots through the do not disturb, right? Because your favorites shoot through.
Right.
And you just never know what they're working on. And our folks ought to feel very thankful that they have that caliber of law enforcement department.
What are you most surprised about, or what's different about the job from when from what your expectations were? You have this idea, but now you've been in it 5 years.
The focus from the community. I mean, I was a 20-year county commissioner, 3 years as chairman, and I could go into Publix most times and not be noticed.
Right.
You can't do that as mayor.
Right.
You just the focus on that position is just
the spotlight's on you now.
Yeah, it's so heightened, and which is not just comes with the territory. But that change, I wasn't quite expecting, but it's profound,
significant.
It is.
I can't imagine at that level. It's something, just from the show, there's a small recognition piece that happens there for myself sometimes, and it's a little different. And I can imagine it it was something I felt, I run this office, 216 agents now, I think, Megan, right? Is that the right number? And felt the difference and shift immediately when I took the role of leadership, of walking around, this is different.
Yeah.
Right? People are looking at me. I got 216 agents who now look at me as the leader, which is bizarre in the first place, and so I can imagine the whole city, with that spotlight on you. And so I at a very micro level,
no, it's the same thing.
Can understand that, and I can't imagine, from what you're, it's a shift. What has that been like for your family?
Oh, they're all in. They encouraged me to run. They've been so supportive. It's kind of like me when I told you, I said I'm never going to be like my dad. Well, my daughters were like that, and now they're all in. I mean, they're very supportive, very strategic. They're always focused on potential issues or things we could do to take it, move our city forward. So, family is very supportive. Mom is still the very wise person that I listen to. And someone asked me, how do you stay so calm? Because I've been in some pretty contentious meetings, more as a commissioner, not as many as mayor, because I'm not in the council meetings. And I told them the truth. Know your mom is watching, and she'd be watching the meetings. And how would she expect you to respond when somebody's berating you or saying something crazy? And so that's just always my response. She's still watching, and I just take a minute, breathe, and respond in a way that she'd be proud of, and that keeps me on track.
Who do you look up to as a leader? Who do you follow, other than God?
Yeah, you hit the primary one. I am a strong Christian, so that kind of directs the way I respond to things. And it's really, my dad, the folks that raised me, my mom still, those things still guide how I move day to day. And I think it's also important that it drives your purpose. And that's one of the reasons I said, I'm not going to be distracted or intimidated on an issue because I know the purpose is moving our city forward. It's not getting more friends, quote unquote friends. It's not money or anything like that. It's moving us forward. That is a purpose. I think we all have a purpose. And so that is really something that's comforting because I know what the goal is.
The purpose is important, right? Yeah, because why we're doing this whole thing. I like to ask everyone this question. It's just the first one that's popping up right now. Mayor, let's say it's your birthday. Mm-hmm. We're hanging out in St. Pete, and we get hungry.
Well,
where are we going?
This is kind of melancholy because one of the places my family loves to go is Chataway.
Okay.
And they announced that they're going to be closing down this summer. I mean, I still think it's one of the best burgers in St. Pete. It's got a history. My dad used to hang out there. Just an iconic place in our city, and they're not being driven out. I think the owner is a senior, and she's ready to move on, and the family is as well. But I might end up going to this weekend since we're talking about that. And there's so many places like that in St. Pete, but that one's close to home.
That one's close to home. Yeah. That one brings back a little nostalgia for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chataway Burger.
Chataway Burger.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good. What have we not talked about that you wish that we would?
I think St. Pete has shaken off the little brother syndrome that we had, kind of an inferiority complex that we had to Tampa when I was growing up. We stand on our own. I think folks recognize that, and that's why we're not, in my view, tied to having the Rays here. I mean, when the Rays came in 95, 98, that was like the biggest thing for our city. And we've grown to the point where we don't have to have them here necessarily. Would love to have them, put an offer on the table that would have kept them. They decided not to pursue that. We're still going to be a great city and become greater because of, the arts, our innovation district, health sciences, all those things that you see happening. Now, fintech, and all the other things that you're seeing with folks coming here from other parts of the nation and seeing what a great community we are. And, not having that Mason-Dixon line where we're fighting with North County all the time, and I think I helped us move us in that direction, is also important. For us to be globally competitive, we have to work with Tampa, Hillsborough, and Pasco as a region to compete with Orlando, Miami, or, other regions around the world. So that evolution in St. Pete is something I'm really proud of. We're not my grandfather's St. Pete anymore, and I think we're balancing the growth in the right way. I hear from some folks, there's too much growth now, there's too much density. And what I say is the density is happening in the places that we planned for it for decades. Activity centers in downtown St. Pete and Tyrone and Gateway and Skowey Marina. That's where we plan for the growth to happen so that the neighborhoods can retain that, traditional neighborhood kind of environment where you don't have the density. So it's happening where we expected it to happen. Sunrunner is the first bus rapid transit in the Tampa Bay region. Hope to expand that. Now we're talking about ferry service as well. So we're making those moves as a city, and the key is to retain what made us special. And I think the zero parking regulation that the council passed a couple weeks ago along the Sunrunner route reflects that. We want to keep those smaller businesses on that route, keep that flavor of St. Pete as we move forward.
Yeah, what is, Mike Sweezy and I had this conversation a little bit, and you bring that up of, how is the city making sure that we don't become big box?
Well, that initiative is part of it. I think the city tried with the storefront preservation rule that was partially effective, but part of the issue, and you're in real estate, I'm an accountant, so you know more than I do, is that the rates in downtown St. Pete have been artificially low for some time. So there was some room for them to come up. But it did drive out some of the traditional, Brew Delicious was one of my favorite coffee shops. They had to move out. But as they move west, move to Wada and some of the other districts, there's still an opportunity. And it's how do we preserve that? I don't think government can totally counterbalance market forces, but we can fill the gaps like we're doing with affordable housing subsidies and other things. Need to do the same thing with affordable commercial.
Yeah, that's back I say about change, but my biggest concern with the costs going up in downtown, 400 Central being one of the buildings with a bunch of new commercial space underneath. Don't know what all is going in there. I know that they've been, intentional with the businesses and storefronts that are showing up. I know there's going to be a great new restaurant on the corner. Is that if rents become too expensive for the local shops, boy, do we lose so much character on our Central Avenue. That's, there's only been a few franchises that have popped up. Some of them are locally owned, so it feels okay, ish. But that's something that I've watched closely, and I've been a little vocal in here. I'm not going to name it anymore because I wish them the best. But there was a particular spot that opened that I'm like, it just doesn't feel like it belongs on Central, but they have a bigger budget to be able to do it. And so, just curious if the city is cognizant of that, watches it.
We're always looking at ways to do that. I think, again, complex conversation, but some type of historical designation could be helpful in certain situations. So we're looking at every option we have to try to preserve that.
I think everyone wants to, and I think if there was a McDonald's that showed up on Central, I don't know that it would do well.
Not when you got a Chattaways type.
Right.
Local business.
Right. That's what I mean.
There's
just that's why people come. It's because when you don't see anything you've seen before, and it's all great stuff, and you walk in the shop and you meet the owner, and it just has this feel to it that's just really community driven. That's something that I loved about being here, is that there's so many micro communities in the greater community of St. Pete, and it makes it really special. And one of my friends says, why? Is because there's so many tables on sidewalks.
Right.
And, so when you go outside, when you're making that walk or you're going out to eat, you might see someone at another restaurant that you're not even visiting because they're sitting outside on the sidewalk.
It's the walkability, the human connection. And again, our forefathers with the preservation of the waterfront, that being sacrosanct, you can't put enough value on that as well. So, but yeah, keeping the flavor of St. Pete, what it always has been, is very, very important to us. There's no silver bullet, though.
No, it's not. It's hard.
Yeah,
it's definitely hard. But shout out, and Tampa's got nothing on us.
I'll be nice.
I'll be nice. I'm not. This is Talkin St. Pete. This is my show, Mayor. I'm telling you right now, St. Pete's better than Tampa.
It has its own culture and flavor.
Sure does.
And,
ours is better.
and folks see that and they love it here. So. Welcome to St. Pete.
Welcome to St. Pete. I tell people all the time, I said, when they say, a lot of people that you meet, they move from different states and they land wherever, and some they go to Tampa. And I'm not throwing too much shade, but they end up in Tampa, and I say, well, you spend enough time in St. Pete, you'll wish you lived on this side of the bridge. And then they do. They come over.
Yeah, it's a healthy competition.
It's a healthy competition.
And it wasn't that way 20 years ago.
No, it's all in good fun. You mentioned the ferry. I'm curious, what's the latest update on the ferry?
So PSTA is overseeing that now. They're trying to acquire a couple of boats. The city is fully supportive of that. And again, part of my background was with PSTA. I was chair when we had a Green Light Pinellas initiative back 2014 or so that would have been light rail. But it really kind of set the foundation for BRT as we see it now. So, I understand transportation is really our Achilles heel in Tampa Bay. You need to be able to connect St. Pete to West St. Pete to the beaches, which Sunrunner does, but we need to expand that, US 19, over to certainly Tampa Airport, perhaps down south to Manatee. And so the ferry is another, way to get some cars off the road. I think the ferry that we have had before is more of a proof of concept. It's not moving a lot of cars off the road, I get that, but just proving that concept and then building that up over time will give folks another option. But in the next 10 years, and maybe you'll be the first to test it, the eVTOLs will be, flying folks, like your Uber sky taxis
Right.
around the area. You know, the first commercial flight was at Albert Whitted,
Oh, yeah.
and it was the mayor
Yeah, I do.
of St. Pete. Now,
I'm prior Air Force. I'm all over that. I'm all over that.
But I'm not going to be the first mayor on the eVTOL.
Come on, we gotta keep hitting. Gotta keep tradition.
I'll give you my seat right on that one. But,
I'll keep your word.
But
to that.
in 10 years, it's going to be commonplace. And so folks will
You
have...
think that's where it's at? What is the city seeing, or maybe Tampa? Because 10 years, you think we're there, we're doing that?
Well, certainly...
Have you seen something?
Yeah, I mean, they've had, exhibitions at Tampa Airport. We talked to some of the manufacturers back then. We are looking at that through our Air Mobility Task Force in St. Pete. And again, they're not clustered just at the airport. They'll be at different buildings that can support the weight of a light vehicle. And so it'll be like Uber, but it'll be a sky.
AI-driven.
eVTOL.
Yeah.
Yeah, pilots at first, but then after they're proven no pilot, you hop in and you fly to where you want to be. That'll probably be in the next decade. The driverless cars are already here, and that's one reason we can have less parking as fewer folks have the need to own a car.
I think the ferry adds a cool aspect to it, just as the airport does. I don't think we should ever lose the airport. It adds a lot of character.
Well, that was an interesting conversation for me for years. So
about the airport?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that's like prime development and tax dollars and all that, but I think it adds such a character.
So one of the big issues that I dealt with when I came in is, what is the economic benefit of the airport? And went through a process, with Ed Montanari as a council member and certainly the Friends. And I came to understand the value of the airport from a emergency response perspective. After Helene and Milton, I flew in with President Biden and the FEMA director and Commissioner Peters from the County Commission and others on Marine One. And
landed
there along with all these Ospreys, like a row of them. And there is a worst case scenario where we lose Howard Franklin and Skyway. And if Albert Wood is still operational, that would be one of the few ways to get to the city of St. Pete. And so just from that perspective, I'm like, okay. And with the advent of eVTOLs and other technology, that really changed my perspective on the value of the airport. And they did a lot of things in terms of access, scholarships, those kinds of things. So I think we're in a good place with the airport now.
Good.
And, and on the other end, some of the proposals for development just were, it was like another downtown in Albert with them. Like,
I think it would ruin it. I think it would ruin it. I'm just going to poo-poo all over that.
Yeah. That was not what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I get from what's the economic spot, but I think again, it kind of preserves some of that view of the waterfront just from that aspect, right? For that, and so I think you lose a cultural aspect of the pier and downtown if that were to be high rises that went up there. And so love to hear that we're on the same page with that one.
Moving in a different direction on that.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good. Let's keep that. And selfishly, I
didn't know you were an Air Force guy until just now, so
yeah.
I get it.
Selfishly, when I'm out at the pier and I'm watching planes overhead, it's one of my favorite things to do in the morning is to watch first flight take off from Albert Whitten. I think it's just awesome. But back to the ferry, I think it'd be cool, even with the EVs, to have a mode of transportation to get to Tampa that's regularly scheduled, that people could rely on for work transportation, for visiting Tampa, because parking over there is not the greatest either.
Right.
For visiting or going to a game over there or whatever, a concert, adds a cool element, almost like a Seattle vibe. Because a lot of
I'll steal this from Mayor Castor. She always talks about, we're surrounded by water and we're not using waterborne transportation, and she's right. So I think the cities are really leading that. The counties kind of took a step back, Pinellas County as well. Maybe we can get them back into the fold at some point, but it's really St. Pete and Tampa.
Yeah, I bet you.
And PSTA stepping in was huge.
When you said that, I go, yeah, I bet you the people of Venice were just laughing at us, because they got them water taxis flying everywhere.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful ride. I mean,
yeah.
And depending on the weather.
Have you ever been to Venice, Italy?
I have not. You
can take a water taxi from the airport straight into the city, and it's beautiful. Beautiful.
Have to add that to the bucket list.
Add that to
you
the
probably
list.
got my wife listening, so thank you for
Yeah, you're welcome.
costing me a trip there.
You're welcome. You celebrate when you win. You can take a after you take a little minute to go over there. But that would add an element of just uniqueness to the city for sure. And I know budgets and everything. We gotta figure.
Well, we got a good partnership with PSTA. They just got a I think $5 million grant, federal grant. So and interesting on BRT. We actually got support from both the Biden and Trump administrations. And so it's something that, cuts across party lines. Folks understand the need for folks to connect. And when folks come here, quite frankly, from other parts of the country or the world, they expect to be able to get around without a car, without renting a car.
No, that is, because that's the normal for them.
Right, and so we need to get there.
Yeah, no, I think it's as a future, right? You talk about the EVs and everything else. It's like transportation it's one thing I love about going over to Europe or wherever. It's like your part of your experience there is how you get around.
Exactly.
Which we got new bridges and all the things that connect us, but it's not the same.
We're making progress. The
Yeah.
the new Howard Franklin has the underpinnings to support light rail. So those express lanes that they're building will first support BRT, which is huge, and that might be all you need because you get 90% of the efficiency from a wheeled bus is rail. But they got the underpinning to support that now. That was a big win for the community. Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. You talk connecting. There's some people think that Central is going to go all the way out to the beaches one day in terms of the development down there. Do you see that vision?
Yeah, you see the development moving westward. Part of the last penny for Pinellas was improvements on Central and the West End, and work with Councilmember Gerties, Copley, and Charlie before that to make that happen. And you see that expansion creeping. In fact, my daughter just is moving her business to the west part. I don't think Copley Gerties even knows this now, but moving to his district. But yeah, it's a very appealing area, and that's just a natural movement, I think, from downtown to the west. And folks in Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach love us. Some of them would like to be a part of the city of St. Pete, but we're not discussing
I don't even.
that yet.
This is I get it. I'm amateur. I don't know.
Yeah.
What is your when you said you're mayor of St. Pete? What's your boundary?
Well, we don't go all the way to the water. That's Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach.
Do you go to the bridge?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there are 24 cities in Pinellas County.
Right.
A lot of enclaves.
Yep.
Lellman to our north, Gulfport, Tierra Verde, which has been in the news a lot because previous administration annexed the marina part, which is trying to get some pretty massive development. But the Tierra Verde people are unincorporated, so now they're sending us a lot of emails opposed to that development. That's not.
Got it.
They can't vote
Right.
for council, but the marina is in the city of St. Petersburg.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm learning a lot today.
There's a lot. There's a lot. Unique community.
You don't get a book either, do
We
you?
used to be part of Hillsborough. I don't know if you knew that. And
Nope.
yeah,
Did not know that.
we removed ourselves from Hillsborough. We're about 100 plus years old because there were no bridges, so it took more than a day to get from Hillsborough to St. Pete. We didn't feel represented, and so we de-annexed, if for lack of a better word, from Hillsborough County and became Pinellas County. Then there was a race to determine where the county seat would be. And there was a regulation that said wherever the first county courthouse was built, that would be the seat. And Clearwater beat us out
Oh wow.
by building a courthouse literally overnight. And that's why the courthouse is in Clearwater and not St. Pete. That's why the seat of the county is in Clearwater, not St. Pete. So that's our history.
There's a lot of history, and you don't get a book when your first day on the job, do you?
No,
There's not a manual on how to do this.
Other than
is
a
there?
budget book, which I love, but it's been a great experience.
Yeah. How is your? And we'll wrap this up. How has your accounting background helped you?
Oh, well, the budget is your document of priorities, and so. I love going through the budget process. We have these line item review, LIRs, with every department and go through their budget, what they want to add, what improvements they're making, what efficiencies they're making. This year, we gave them an exercise to reduce the budget by 3 or 5%. Because of what's changing in real estate, and partly, I think, also anticipation of what might happen with property tax reform. So we might have to go through this exercise again. But it's just such a great learning experience. We've got 3,800 employees, 25 departments, and they do such incredible work every day to make our city what it is. So I love going through the budget, love prioritizing. It's a $1.2 billion budget. We had our first open house a couple weeks ago. We had 20 people come out, and half of them wanted more money for complete streets. And you had a couple others that wanted the pier out in Jungle Prada, and just a couple other random things. So out of a $1.2 billion budget, just to have that small ask for changes, I think shows that we're really connecting with the community and providing the things they want us to. So I start with the budget and go from there.
It's a lot. It's a lot. I applaud you for doing it. It's an honorable position, obviously, and you've done.
It's a privilege to serve and a blessing.
Yeah. Well, it just had me thinking. I know you got sworn in at your home because of COVID.
Because I literally had COVID. Yeah.
Oh, you had COVID.
I had COVID.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your first day was quite interesting.
Yeah, the first year. I mean, it's never stopped being interesting.
Yeah.
But it was kind of what was that Wag the Dog movie? So you remember that movie?
Maybe.
It was how they set up a platform in my driveway with curtains, the whole seal, the podium. Judge Andrews came down. My family's in the yard, spread out, with mask on. But if you saw the video, it looked like I was
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they set that all up in a couple of days because I tested positive. I was feeling bad, tested positive. They said, well, you can't. And so that's where we started. That's where we started. And we went from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for the people you want to say before we end this?
No, just stay focused on our city. We're in a great city. Don't get distracted. There's so much that can be overwhelming every day in the news or social media. Stay focused on the real things that are happening in our community. There's a lot of good things happening in our community that folks who believe in our city are making happen, not just in city government, but folks in our neighborhoods and communities. And a lot of good things to celebrate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you, and best of luck in the
Thank you,
race
Ryan.
coming up. And grateful for you and the city and everything going on. Mayor Welch, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Appreciate
absolutely.
it. All righty.
Absolutely.